Hi, this is Umair. I'm back with another AngularJS tutorial. In this video, I'll talk about how to create reusable AngularJS components with the help of directives. Nowadays, everything needs to be reusable, whether it's in the real world life or if you're developing something, whether it's a web app, game app, mobile app, or a server-side application. We want to create a specific templates, specific components that we can use later on whenever we need it. So AngularJS is one of the top most JavaScript frameworks for web applications. So in AngularJS, we must know that how we can create a reusable component rather than creating one thing again and again when we need it. So I have opened my WebStorm, and in my WebStorm I have created an empty project, and in my project I'm going to create different files, HTML file, JavaScript file, in order to show you that how we can create AngularJS components. So let's get started. I'm going to right click on my project and I'm going to create an HTML file, and I'm going to name my file index.html, and right here I'm going to give it a title reusable components, and after that I need to bring up my AngularJS file. I'm going to give the source for my CDN, so I will write script source https colon clone.cloud/ajax/libs/angular.js/1.6.1/angular.main.js. Actually, I have written it by myself, but if you want to know what is it, you can also download AngularJS file and include in your project and give the reference of that file in the source. If you want to know that how you can get to that link, just open your browser and I'm going to click on Angular CDN, and I'll click on first link, and these are all the CDNs that we can use. We can use the Angular animate.min.js for the animations in Angular, and this is the file that I just copied. If you want to copy this one, you can copy it from here. Just click on copy and paste that thing over there. Okay, so next I need to create a JavaScript file, and I'm going to name it app.js, and I need to give the reference of my app.js file in my index file. Okay, so I will write script source app.js, and above that I need to create a CSS file because I want to style this application a bit. So I will write style.css, and above my script file reference I need to link the script file. So I will write link rel, and I will name style sheet and href style.css. Okay, so we have added the reference for my style.css, app.js, and our AngularJS file. So I just want to run my application to see if there is no error and our files have been included and fetched perfectly. So I'll just click on this Chrome button, and I will right click here, go to inspect, and if there is no error, means that our AngularJS file have been downloaded successfully. Okay, so let's close this one and I'll go back right here. So now I need to create a few elements, and then I'll show you that how we can further proceed with creating reusable components. So I will first write h1 tag. Okay, and in h1 tag, what if I want to print out a data for a student? Let's say a student has an ID, a student has a name, student has a roll number, and other different properties, but I want to bind these properties and get the data from my app.js file. Okay, so I'm going to just remove this one, and if you already know a bit AngularJS, which I expect, then you should know that how to create controllers, how to create modules. Let's get started and create our module and the controller. So I will write var my app equals to angular dot module, and I'm going to name my module, which is my app. And after that I need to give the dependency. Right now we don't have any dependency, so we are just going to give an empty array. Okay, and this is the name of our module, and we need to specify in our index.html file that for what module we are writing this template. Okay, and we can add the reference in any element, but I'll give the topmost parent element, which is the HTML element. So I will write ng dash app, and I'm going to give the name of my module. Alright, and this is the name of module. This is not the name of module. This is just to get the reference of the module that we have just created. Okay, so now I need to create a controller. So I will write my app controller, and I'm going to name my controller, which is my CTRL. And after that I need to specify a function with a parameter called scope, and scope will be used to refer all the variables, all the functions that we will be creating in the function of this controller. Okay, so what do I mean by it? Let's say that I want to create a variable message, and I want to print out hello world. So I have specified a scope, $scope dot message, and this variable can be used to bind it with our HTML element. Okay, so I have specified my ng app equals to my app, and after that I also need to specify the controller, that what controller should be used for any specific element. Okay, so right now I want to have just one controller for the whole body, so I will include my controller in the body element. Okay, and all the variables that I will write within this controller can be used in all the elements within this body element. Okay, so I will write ng controller, and after that I need to give it the name of my controller. Okay, and once I specify my controller, I can use these variables in my template. So in order to bind the variable message with the HTML element, which is right now h1, we need to specify double curly braces, and inside it I can directly write the name of my variable. So let's run it. You can see that it has printed hello world. Right now I'm just explaining you these basic thing because I want to build up the base and take this knowledge to build up our reusable component. Okay, so just wait as I'm just explaining and building up the base for you guys. Okay, so now let's add our model. So let's add scope dot students equals to, and I'm gonna specify an array of objects, and each object will refer to a specific student. Let's say I have an ID for the first student, which is 1, name Umair, and roll number anything. All right, so now I will copy this one, comma paste, comma paste. So I will just go with 3 student objects. So I will change the names, change the ID and the name, anything. Okay, so I have created a variable, and that is storing an array of objects. Okay, so what if I want to print out all these objects, the values of these keys in my HTML? So let's go to our index file, and let's say I want to print out all the variables. So I will first write div, and in my div I want to write a directive. We are already using the directive. These are the directives: ng app, ng controllers. So I will write ng repeat equals to, and what this directive does is we need to give it an variable name of an array, and this is our array, and it's going to iterate through each object within that array. So first it will iterate this object, it will iterate this object. So I will write ng repeat student in students. Alright, this is the name of our variable that we have written right here, and this has a syntax. Each time that this div is going to repeat, it's going to store each reference of our student in this variable, and inside it I can print out the ID, name, and the roll number in my template. So I can write p, and rather than binding different variables using these double curly braces, we have the different directives that we can use to bind different variables. So right now I will just use the, let's say, ng bind, and after that I need to specify the variable that can be used to bind with this p element. So I will write a student, and that has a reference for one object. Okay, so we have got the reference of individual objects, and after that we need to specify that with what property we want to bind with this HTML element. So I will write student.id. Okay, and I will copy this one, paste it 2 more times, and I will name it like this, roll number. Alright, so now if I run my app, you can see that first it printed hello world, and after that it printed all the values of all the objects of students. Okay, so now let's analyze it. Do we need to write all these bunch of things again and again if we need it? We might have different other variables. We might have bunch of hundreds of variables in our controllers, and we have hundreds of controllers in our large applications. So we need to write the bunch of HTML. Right now it has a small HTML, but in real life it is not that much small. So it is not a really good practice that we keep on writing the templates within the index.html or original file. Instead we want to create a reusable component, and in that component we want to give each student, and that component is going to handle this student, that how that component is going to print the student object. Okay, rather than just adding or printing the layout of our student, that how student needs to be shown in our screen. Okay, so before that I just want to lay out, I'm going to convert the whole layout in our directive, so that you may understand that how we can move on working with the simple HTML binding and convert it with the directives. So let's go to our style.css. I just want to modify and lay out my CSS file. So first I need to write body, margin 0 auto, width 500 pixels, and after that I want to create a class for individual student, because I want to bring individual student at the center of our screen. So I will first write a width that is 100% and height that is auto, and display, and that has to be inline block, and we need to assign a border. For the border I will write 2 pixels, solid and gray. Okay, and after that I will give it a margin is 10 pixels, and padding is 5 pixel, background color is light gray. Okay, so let's specify these classes. In my div I need to assign a class, and that is an item, and we have a body element that we have selected. So let's run our file again and see if our layout is working perfectly. So we have fetched out the data from our model, and we have styled this layout a bit. So let's get started and convert this layout into a reusable component using directives. So let's come to our app.js file, and I'm going to create a directive in my this module. Make sure that we need to first create a module, and inside this module we can create service, factory, controller, directives, filters, and much more other things. Okay, so after that I need to use a name of our module, and I'm going to write a directive, and inside it I need to give it the name of this directive, and that needs to be in camel case. So I will write student dir function, and without before writing anything inside our directive, let's bind this directive to our HTML. Okay, so make sure you copy the name of our directive, and I'm just going to cut these bunch of codes and paste it right below and comment it right here for the reference. Okay, so that we may know that without directive how did we print out the elements. So within this div element I need to use that directive. So in order to use that directive, we need to specify that whether we want to use that directive as an element or as an attribute. Okay, so in our app.js file we can specify using a restrict keyword. So in this video I'm going to use a directive as an element, so I will write the name, not the name, which is student dash dir. You might be confused that right here we wrote the name of our directive in camel case, but in here what AngularJS do is it reads the name of directive in camel case and convert the name, the letters in the dash format. Okay, wherever it finds the capital letter it adds a dash before it, and it converts all the characters into small letters. Okay, and this is how we are referring to our student dir directive that we have just written inside it, and I'm going to use the directive as an element. So first I need to return a whole object. Whenever page loads, it returns everything that comes inside this directive, so that's why we specify an object and return that object. And inside it we need to first specify that how we want to use that directive. As I mentioned, I want to use my directive as an element, so I will use a restrict property, and within the single quotes I will write E. And what E stands for? E stands for an element, and we have used this directive as an element, so that's why I have written element. If I want to use this directive as an attribute, I need to specify A right here, but I will use E. So I will add a comma, and let's say that I want to add a template inside it. Let's say a strong hello world. Alright, I have specified a template with my own HTML. So right now let's run our application and see what is printed. You can see that it has printed hello world, hello world, hello world 3 times. The reason is that there are 3 objects in student element, and this everything that is inside this div is going to execute 3 times, and it's going to call that directive 3 times, this directive, and this directive is going to add the template within this div, and our template is strong hello world. That's why the hello world has been printed. But in large application we don't directly write HTML right here. Instead we create a separate template. So I will right click in my project and we need to create an HTML file. So I will write student temp, and I'm going to remove the whole bunch of things. I will copy and cut the commented code from here and paste it right here. Remove the comments and bring it at the top. Okay, so we have added the styling of our template to student temp.html. Okay, so rather than adding our HTML code directly inside the template, we need to change template to template URL, and I need to give the path for my HTML file that I've just created. So I will write student temp.html. Alright, but how does this directive know? Because this directive is linked with this template, but how this template will get the object of individual student? Okay, I need to send out the data object, and our data object is this inside this student object. I need to send out the student object to this directive, and this directive is going to set the scope for that student object, and that scope can be used to bind different properties in these elements. Okay, so in order to specify a scope, we need to write a scope, and inside it we need to define a name of you can say a variable that will receive the data. Okay, so I will give it a name data colon, and within the single quotes I will just write an equal to, and this is a little bit confusing, but this is how the directive in AngularJS works. All right, so from index.html I need to send out the data. So the data should be received in data variable, and the data that needs to be sent is in student. Okay, so in my index.html student directive, as an attribute I need to write the name of variable that is going to receive that data equals to, within double quotes I need to send out the data that contains the actual data, and student contains the individual data for our student. Each time this div is going to repeat, the different student object is going to send to the data variable to this directive. Okay, so now we have received the data, and after that we need to specify another thing right here, and that is our link function. Scope element attributes. Okay, and every time that directive is going to be called, the data comes inside it, and we can extract the data using this scope. It's just like a controller. We can use the scope to define functions in this link function. We can define variables, we can define objects, and a bunch of other things. So let's first show you that if data is coming or not. So I'm going to write a console.log scope data. Let's see that this prints the actual data 3 times or not. I'm going to just comment this code, save all the files, and I'm going to run it. All right, there is no data printed because there is nothing in our template right now. So I'll right click it, go to inspect, and I'll go to console. You can see that we have 3 objects, and each object contain the ID, name, roll number. We have a second object, and we have a third object. Okay, so I hope that you have got the idea how this thing is working. The scope is containing the data. Now we can use this variable to bind different properties of the data with these p elements. So I'm going to uncomment it, and rather than writing student, I need to use data right here, because the student object has been received in data variable. Okay, so let's save this one, and I'm going to run my file again. So you can see that it has fetched out the data from our model, and it has bind the data separately for individual objects of a student. Okay, and I'm going to show you that how we can use a link function to enhance the functionality. Let's say I want to modify the data that is coming within this scope. So let's say that I want to capitalize all the characters of my name. So I will write scope.data.name equals to scope.data.name.to uppercase. So before showing the data in our template, it's going to convert all the characters of our name to uppercase and store the result in the name back. Okay, so let's reload our file. So you can see that it has printed all the name characters in capital letters. All right, so in the same way we can add functions inside it. Let's say that I want to log a message whenever any specific object is clicked. So I need to add a button right here, and on the click of that button I want to execute a function. So just right below I will write input type button ng-click. This is a directive used to handle the click event. So I will write a show message and I will send out data.name, and data.name is going to have individual name for each instance of our student object. And after that I need to give it a value. Let's say I want to say click me. Alright, so let's save this file, and I'm going to come to my app.js file, and inside it I can specify that function. So I will receive a name, and inside it I will write console.log, and I will print out a message, hi this is, and I will concatenate it with the name that has been sent from this template. Okay, so I'll just save both the files, and I'm going to reload my index file. So all the instances of my different instance of student object, I have a click event. But before that, let's open up inspect. Let's open on the right side, click on the console tab, and if I click on the click me, you will see that hi this is Umair, and if I click on this, it will say hi this is Ali. So it is keep on printing Ali. If I click on this, hi this is John. Okay, so this is how we can bind individual elements of this template, whether it's a button element, we want to execute a function, or whether it's a variable, whether it's an object or a bunch of data composed in an array. Alright, and the beauty of directive is that rather than sending out just one object, we can send out multiple objects. Right, if I want to send out another data right here, so I can specify data2 equals to, let's add the data in our controller. I want to send out this message, so I will just give it a message, and that data2 variable is going to receive the value that is within this message. But I need to specify a variable that is going to receive that message. Okay, and data2 now contains the message that is being sent from here. And in my template, let's say that I want to print out the message, so let's say P, and within the double curly braces I will write data2 dot message. Alright, so now let's run our file, and nothing has been printed because let's go to our app.js file, and let's write scope dot data2 dot, actually I have printed out wrong. I just need to write data2 right here, because I'm sending out a message object here, and message object is directly containing the value. It is not referring to any child object, child property. It is itself a message, it is itself a property. So the itself property is going to be received within this data2 variable, and this data2 variable contain the message. So rather than adding data2 dot message, we will directly write data2 right here. So now if I run my file, you will see that it has printed the message that has been sent in the second attribute in our directive. And in the same way we can send out multiple data variables to this directive. So that's pretty much it. It wasn't a very big directive, but I have tried to cover all the major concepts and topic that you should know, that how to work with directives, how to add our scope variables, how to link any template with that directive, how to add our functions, how to bind different variables data with our template, and how to create obviously reusable component. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe my channel and share this video as well, and watch my other AngularJS tutorials. I have created other AngularJS tutorials for the beginners to learn AngularJS, like creating single page web applications, creating form validations in AngularJS, login with Facebook and Google Web APIs. So see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.